welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a video on a boost gauge install. What I've been kind of working on is getting the car more road and tune ready because the plan is to probably get it tuned after Christmas sometime around tax season. What I have been doing is setting up the cluster so that I can actually start to read coolant temp, oil pressure, stuff like that. Right now it reads RPM, right now it reads speed and other little things. So the three things it did not read were oil temp, oil pressure, coolant temp, and fuel. Okay, the fuel's a little weird. I'm gonna have to work on that because I have a dual billet pump set up in the back now, and I think the wiring is just wrong. So we'll work on that later. But to make your stock cluster work with your factory one, this stuff has to be built into your harness. So you can see right here, this is my coolant gauge temp sensor. So to make it work on the LS, you have to do an adapter into the head of the LS, and then you have to use stock sensors from the FD. So I have to get the coolant temp sensor from an FD, and I had to get an oil pressure sensor from an FD. And I have a local friend that has them, and he was kind enough to hook me up so I could get my car running. I did get the coolant one installed. That one was kind of a pain because even though it is an adapter, you actually have to drill out the center to even get the stock gauge to thread all the way down. I didn't know that. I lost some coolant. So we'll get that fixed up. But it's in. It's not leaking. Everything's good. Yep, not leaking. Everything's good. The next one was an oil pressure sensor. Now, the main place that people do it is on the back of the head down there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like a sensor right there that's not plugged in. That's a stock factory LS oil pressure sensor. Again, you would have to do an adapter and then a stock Mazda FD sensor in there. I didn't do that. I didn't go that route. Actually, what I did was, here's the cable for it. I just actually put it right into my oil feed line for my turbo. I have a little adapter right down by the oil filter. It screwed right in there, no problems. And I actually did start up the car the other day, and it works. So we're going to have oil pressure. Hopefully we're going to have temp. And then we got to work on fuel. So the only other gauge that I really have is wideband. So as you can see, there's my wideband right there. The one thing I don't have is the boost gauge. So I wanted to do like a Banks gauge or like an SPA gauge or something like that. So I could do like multiple readings. I could have boost, I could have oil, I could have water temp. I could have a bunch of things, right? And Banks gauges and SPA gauges allow you to do that, but they're expensive. Like once you get all the harnesses, the adapters, the fittings, whatnot, it becomes like $1,000 gauge kits. So I still kind of want to do a digital cluster in the FD. Not sure if that's going to mean going to a Terminator or wiring up something. So I didn't really want to spend too much on gauges if I'm going to do digital cluster because it'll all be in it. So this is me being a little cheap. I did have an old school turbo one, but the glass is kind of faded and it didn't really look very good installed. So hopped on eBay, and for $35 delivered, it doesn't look half bad. So we'll see what it does, how it does. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But yeah, so it's I guess it's a bezel gauge or a bell gauge, but it's from eBay. That's the SKU. It does boost readings, and it does like a whole bunch of color changes and stuff like that. So I don't have the suction cup mount, or I guess it's not a suction cup. I don't have the mount to mount it to the pillar just yet, but I did want to kind of show you guys the gauge. And I'm probably going to install the boost sensor into here because I actually have a port ready for it right there. So I'll probably work on that stuff, and then when I actually get the pod in, then I'll do the stuff on the inside. You know, I'll run the wires tonight and whatnot, and I'm going to just run it through here, through the fender, and then out by the floor. So yeah, more videos to come, so just be ready. We're going to do a boost gauge install. This is honestly how most modern gauges are set up nowadays. Is they have they're basically like digital inputs. So you have a harness on the backside that'll run to a sensor. So this is essentially a pressure switch or sensor that will read the boost. As you can see, there's a nipple here for vacuum, and then it'll feed the gauge, and then you will have two other outputs. This is going to be like power and ground references. So one of these is most likely power, the other one's for ground. That's fine. This fourth one is for for color changing, but I don't really care about that since there's also a button on the back. This is just to make it so you could, you know, do it on the fly and whatnot, but I really don't care about that. I'm not going to have that installed. So you basically have to have this in the engine bay getting a vacuum source, then you feed the gauge into the car to this, and then you just do power and ground. And then there'll be other gauges where you can do like wideband. That one's tapped like directly into my... No, I think that was on my other car. It was like that. One of my cars, I think it was ECM Link, I had the ECU being fed the wideband signal directly as well. So there's other ways to do it, but there you go, guys. Power ground, sensor switch, going to be installed. Real quick, I really didn't spend too much time on this boost gauge because it's not going to be the end-all boost gauge that I want or am going to keep. So right off my vacuum block, we're just feeding this line over to the sending unit. I'm out of the sending unit here because we fed this sensor wire through the hole in the chassis, through the firewall this way, and it goes down near the fuse box by the clutch pedal. So then, open up here. All right. Let's see if I can make this better. So then what we do is we go ahead and ground the wire. Let me get some more light in here. So we go ahead and we ground the wire, and I grounded it here, and then I used a tap-a fuse right here to pull in the power because I already had power going to my AEM gauge. And then from there you just sneak the wires up through the side, and then you mount. And you can see where I have it positioned right now, just because I don't have the pod like the AEM one right now. The boost gauge is going to sit up here, okay, right above it. But it comes on and it turns on, and it was reading, you know, negative vacuum and all that kind of good stuff. So it's pretty much done. I mean, that's the main things with boost gauge is, you know, just a couple power wires, a ground wire, and all right, guys. So I'm gonna finish up the video here with the final install. You can see that I have the new mount up. I already kind of marked my pillar. I taped it where I wanted it to be. This is a little hard to do because you know, you want the pillar to be, the pillar goes straight this way, so trying to get it to angle down to me when it's straight is hard. So they're all going to be a little like off-center looking, but basically you put the wires through how you want, and then you're going to have to get the wires situated. You can go ahead and get this in. Alright, so about there is good. And then we take the gauge. I think that's... Yeah, that's it. I took a quick picture so I could see. So, alright. So this is about where I want it. Let me just get you over here. You can see how we have it set up right now. I think it looks pretty good. Both the gauges are angled towards me, so I just need to finish tightening up these bolts here and here. This one's going to be a pain, but I think I can get to it. Finish tightening up those bolts, kind of making sure it comes up and it stays up. Yeah, that'll look good when it's all said and done. Cool. So that's pretty much it, guys. All I need to do is just tighten these bolts, put a zip tie on the back, and we're all set. You know, this is super simple stuff. Just tape up your, if you want to do like outside mounts like how I'm doing, just tape up your pillar, get the gauge kind of set up how you want it to be, hold it up, mark the holes, and then you just drill them with a smaller drill bit, and then you put in the supplied screws from Autometer, and like that's it. And then I just have the wires running down behind here and all set up. So thanks for watching, guys. That is the end of my external gauge mount setup, and stay tuned for more videos. Thanks.